dangerous nest of hornets buzzes. Adam Clay, dressed in safety gear, steps inside. He looks around carefully, then moves towards the nest. Quickly, he puts the nest into a bag and takes it away. While cooking in the kitchen, the farm owner, Mrs. Parker, notices Adam Clay leaving the shed. She goes outside to thank him for getting rid of the hornets. As a professional beekeeper, Adam shows his protective nature over the beehives on the farm. From their conversation, it seems like the two share a special bond, like mother and son. The beekeeper walks into the barn and places the hornet's nest on a table. He then uses a taser and a light to shock all the hornets, killing them quickly. With the hornets gone, he happily goes back to taking care of his bees. Meanwhile, Mrs. Parker is using her computer and cooking at the same time when a warning about a computer virus pops up on her screen. Feeling puzzled, she decides to call the help number shown on the warning for assistance. From a call center somewhere in the city, an agent's phone rings. He calls his boss to his desk. The boss, named Garnet, picks up Mrs. Parker's call and introduces himself with an alias, saying he works at a software company. Mrs. Parker tells him about her computer problem, to which Garnet explains that she currently has an older version of the antivirus software installed on her computer, and to fix it, she would need to uninstall the antivirus and get the updated version. Not knowing much about computers, the innocent old lady trusts him to assist her. Garnet instructs Mrs. Parker to go to their website and install a software package. With this program, the call center gains remote access to Mrs. Parker's computer. This also gives them the power to sift through all of her bank accounts without her knowing. Not a moment later, they find Mrs. Parker's charity account with over $2 million in it. Mrs. Parker's computer suddenly goes crazy with pop-ups. To make up for the inconvenience, Garnet says he sent $500 to her account. All she has to do is log into her bank account containing the $2 million for supposed verification purposes. After opening the account, Mrs. Parker sees that $50,000 has been sent to her instead of $500. Garnet plays it off as an accident and tells her he'll lose his job for making such a huge mistake. The old lady sympathizes with him and offers to wire him the money back. As it turns out, it's only a ploy to get the master password for her charity account. Mrs. Parker hesitates for a second, feeling something is a bit off, but Garnet pleads to her again that he will lose his job if the money isn't returned. Finally, the poor old lady gives in. As soon as Mrs. Parker submits the master password, her laptop shuts down. Back at the call center, the company successfully drains all the money from her bank accounts. When Mrs. Parker's computer boots back up, she finds that all her accounts have been emptied. She slowly panics, realizing what she has done, and breaks down, feeling helpless. Meanwhile, Adam Clay packs a honey jar for Mrs. Parker in the barn. He makes his way to her house. From outside, he hears the fire alarm beeping. He calls her name, but she doesn't answer. In the unlit kitchen, a pot is left cooking on the stove. He grabs a kitchen knife, feeling something is wrong, and goes to Mrs. Parker's room to check up on her. When he gets there, he sees a gun on the floor with an empty casing and drops of blood splattered around it. Behind him, an armed woman suddenly appears and arrests him. While being handcuffed, Adam Clay calls the woman by her name, Verona. The woman is surprised by how the man knows her name. She looks around the room and finds the old lady, her mother, dead with a bullet wound to her head. Moments later, the police arrive. The beekeeper, Adam Clay, is questioned about his connection with Verona's mother. He reveals that Mrs. Parker took him in and allowed him to rent a space in the barn. Verona proceeds to investigate the house. While looking around, she finds her mother's computer and learns that her bank accounts, her savings, retirement, and charity account, have all been emptied at once. She realizes she messed up, pinning her mother's death on Adam Clay. In the morning, the police let Adam go after failing to find his prints on the gun. Given all the evidence, Mrs. Parker's death is confirmed as a suicide. Verona apologizes for her reaction. She thanks Adam for looking out for her mother and tells him what she had recently learned about her mother's death. Mrs. Parker was scammed by a mysterious crew that has been operating for years, their identities still undetermined by the FBI. Adam Clay expresses his dismay and leaves to tend to his bees. From one of the beehives, Adam Clay pulls out a hidden phone strapped safely inside. He dials a number, and a woman answers from a mysterious office. Adam asks her for a favor, a name and an address that even the FBI can't find. The woman calls back later and explains that the people he is looking for run a worldwide operation. Having learned the address of the call center, Adam Clay drives to a building owned by a company called the United Data Group. He picks up 2 cans of gas from the back of his truck, and 2 security men greet him outside the door. Adam Clay casually admits that he's there to burn the place down. Filled with righteous anger, he explains that the company they work for prey on the weak. They are thieves and scammers, but the men don't care. They start pulling out their guns, but the beekeeper quickly disarms them and knocks them unconscious. Inside, he tells the receptionist to inform other companies in the building to evacuate. At the call center, Adam walks in front of the room and calls the attention of everyone there. He asks them to repeat these words after him: "I will never steal from the weak and the vulnerable again." Everyone laughs. The beekeeper grabs the phone of an agent next to him and beats him mercilessly with it. Horrified and having understood the beekeeper means business, everyone stops what they're doing and starts paying attention. Adam asks again to repeat the words. This time, the agents say the words in unison. The beekeeper begins dousing the computers with gasoline while the agents scramble to evacuate. Garnett shortly arrives with his security detail and questions him. Introducing himself as a beekeeper, Adam Clay says he's there to protect the hive. Garnett orders his men to stop him, but one by one they drop. The beekeeper goes through them with nothing but his bare hands and the objects around him. When all of the men are down, the beekeeper grabs a set of detonators and attaches them to the gallons. He explains to Garnett that the next call they receive will trigger it, burning everything and everyone inside the building. The beekeeper leaves, and Garnett runs for his life. Shortly after, the building erupts in a huge explosion as the beekeeper drives away. In Boston, a young technology executive named Derek Danforth receives a call from Garnett telling him that a disgruntled customer burned down their $30 million call center, with 4 people dead. The cameras also burned down, so the man responsible could not be identified. Derek approaches one of his employees, a former CIA director named Wallace, and asks him for his help finding the arsonist. Wallace claims he can't help, so Derek calls Garnett and orders him to track down their most recent scamming victims and to handle the arsonist himself using his connections. Meanwhile, Verona responds to the call center fire with her partner. She learns that a man single-handedly took down security and burned down the building with a couple of gas cans, not realizing yet that it's the work of a man avenging the death of her mother. Back at Mrs. Parker's place, Garnett arrives with a wrecking crew and notices a rugged pickup truck driving away, the same one the beekeeper was last seen driving back at the call center. In the barn, the beekeeper turns on all the machines to create noise. When Garnett and his hired guns arrive, they struggle to locate the beekeeper, so they decide to split up. At the hands of Adam Clay, the hired guns meet gruesome deaths. It's clear as day now that he is not an ordinary beekeeper. Now, all alone, Garnett panics. Instead of killing him, the beekeeper cuts off his fingers using a running saw machine and leaves him bleeding in a cart, his intention of keeping him alive unknown. Once again, the FBI is one step behind Adam Clay. When they arrive at Mrs. Parker's place, they are met with the dead bodies of former United Data Group employees, courtesy of the beekeeper. Garnett manages to escape. He stops at a bridge to call his boss, Derek Danforth. He reports that they were unsuccessful in killing the beekeeper. Out of nowhere, Adam Clay appears and punches Garnett across the face. He drags him out of his car and straps him securely to his truck. Then, after switching the gear inside, it takes off, and over the bridge it falls into the river, with Garnett dragging behind it. The beekeeper grabs Garnett's phone, Derek still on the other side, and threatens him. Derek asks the help of Wallace, the former CIA director, once again. He jokes about the idea of a beekeeper coming after him. No Knowing the true background of beekeepers, Wallace is disappointed by his recklessness and explains to him how dangerous a beekeeper is and that he should fear for his life. At the FBI headquarters, Verona and her partner Matt discuss the ongoing case. Matt expresses his concern about the identity of the beekeeper, Adam Clay, saying he either doesn't exist or he belongs in a classified program. Back at Danforth Enterprises, Wallace calls the director of the CIA for help. He tells her that his young ward caught the attention of a beekeeper. The CIA director later informs Wallace that the beekeeper he's looking for is retired and that the current beekeeper will be taking things from there. Wallace expresses his concern about the new beekeeper, saying the person is a lunatic. While at a gas station, Adam Clay is attacked by a wildly dressed woman with a submachine gun, the current beekeeper, Anisette Landris. A police car responds, but Anisette mercilessly shoots them down. Without a weapon in hand, all Adam could do is deflect her attacks. Anisette later unravels a machine gun attached to the back of her truck and opens fire at the gas station. Adam manages to disorient her with a honey jar to the head, giving himself a chance to set her on fire. Now that Anisette is dead, Adam Clay cuts off one of her fingers. He drives away as the gas station explodes behind him. Wallace gets a call from the CIA director again. He is told that the mission was unsuccessful and that the beekeepers have decided to remain neutral. They are now on their own against Adam Clay. To handle the beekeeper, Wallace forms an elite team of former Tier 1 and Delta Special Forces soldiers. He briefs them about Adam Clay's background, then sets them out on the hunt. Meanwhile, Adam arrives at Anisette's headquarters, using her severed finger to pass through security. Inside, he uses her computer to trace the location of his next target while he gathers gear. When the target, 9 Star United, is pinpointed, he wastes no time and leaves. In 9 Star United, a SWAT team arrives to secure the building. On their way in, they are stopped by the tactical team hired by Wallace, saying they were given jurisdiction over the building's security. The SWAT team decides to set up a perimeter outside. Wallace's team warns the call center manager, Rico Anzalone, of the incoming danger. Anzalone dismisses them, worried about lost earnings, and decides to phone his boss, Derek. Outside, while the SWAT team discusses possible entry points in the building, Adam Clay walks by nonchalantly. Before being detained, the beekeeper takes down the entire SWAT team and grabs one of them as a hostage to infiltrate the building. Back at the call center, Adam Clay blends in with the agents inside, but Wallace's team recognizes him and opens fire. With stealth and the use of his surroundings, Adam Clay takes out Wallace's team as they pursue him. The SWAT team decides to follow. Meanwhile, Adam takes out the remainder of Wallace's team as they chase him down an elevator, all of them meeting gruesome deaths. Adam Clay returns to Anzalone and tortures him with a telephone. Anzalone caves and shows the beekeeper a picture of the company's bosses. Verona and her team finally make it to the floor, but Adam manages to escape. Wallace and Derek learn about what happened. Out of options, Wallace suggests that Derek ask his mother for help. Derek's mother agrees and invites him to their beach house. Moments later, Derek's mother, Jessica Danforth, is revealed to be none other than the current president of the United States. At the FBI headquarters, Verona reveals to the deputy director that the company involved in the call center scams is owned by the president and currently run by her son, and tells him that she might be Adam Clay's next target. The road to the beach house is heavily guarded. Each vehicle that passes through is extensively searched before being cleared. Adam Clay takes a passage through the sewers. Through a grate, he slides underneath several trucks lined up for the checkpoint and grabs hold onto one quietly. While the one he's on is being searched, he renders the searcher unconscious, loads him underneath the truck, and takes his facial gear as a disguise. With it, he successfully blends in and finds his way to the beach house. The beach house itself is built like a fortress, with a combination of a SWAT team and Wallace's hired mercenaries patrolling the property. Regardless, Adam Clay easily slips into the party with a change of clothes. In a private room, Derek, his mother, and the FBI deputy director hold a meeting. Derek is questioned about his connection with United Data Group. At the party, Verona notices Adam Clay and orders her men to pursue him. The mercenaries catch up to Adam in the yard and hold him at gunpoint. With him being unarmed, Verona objects to the mercenaries killing him, but before the mercenary leader could fire a shot, Adam Clay blows up a nearby vehicle using a small detonator hidden between his fingers. While people are disoriented, Adam manages to grab a gun and shoot the mercenaries down. Unstoppable, Adam Clay powers through the mercenaries and the SWAT team, shooting his way through the mansion while Derek argues with his mother upstairs. As it turns out, Derek's mother is unaware of his illegal activities, but Derek insists that he only did it to ensure that she wins the presidency. Meanwhile, an injured Adam Clay finally reaches the room where Derek and his mother Jessica are, but Wallace confronts him. Wallace tries to convince him to let go of his vengeance, but he fails. The door blows open, and just as the beekeeper enters, Verona arrives. At the other end of the room, Derek has his arm around his mother's neck. Adam Clay tells Verona that she decides whether to work for the law or for justice. Now Derek, fueled with drugs, begins aiming his gun to his mother's head as he says goodbye to her. Before he can kill her, Adam Clay quickly fires a shot directly between his eyes. Verona hesitates to shoot Adam, allowing him to jump through the glass window to escape. Outside, Verona has a clear shot at Adam, but decides to let him go. Adam jumps over to the beach and digs up his hidden diving gear from the sand. Before the SWAT team can catch up to him, the beekeeper disappears into the ocean. Thank you for watching this recap of The Beekeeper. What did you think of this movie? Let me know in the comments below. And be sure to sting that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next recap. We'll see you next time.